Albert here. I'm talking to Scott Kuntz, all the way in Colorado. How are you doing today, Scott?
Doing well, Albert. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. And you just mentioned we met a couple of months ago at Pizza Expo, which was a pretty wonderful time. I always like going, and we started talking, and I'd like to get your pizza story and your cooking story because you're a professional chef. So, can you explain how you got into cooking?
Sure. I think as most children of the 80s and 90s, we have a pretty similar story. But, in the mid 90s, probably around 94, of working age, maybe a little younger than of legal working age, but wanted to put some money in my pocket and had hardworking parents. And that's where the restaurant, industry really fits in a lot of people's lives. So did some fast food. I think there was a term called the sandwich artist back then. I don't think Subway uses that anymore. And
Okay.
did a little stint with Fazoli's. Yeah, I would say in 98 was really when I got the bug, really started taking things a little more seriously. Worked in a couple private country clubs, and then towards the fall of 98, I really fell in love and met some just brilliant gentlemen that had built some foundations in the Midwest with a multi-unit group. I ended up joining them. They opened the doors to their first unit and broke ground on their second unit on the same day. So it
Wow.
was a big vision in the beginning, and what a wild story that was. We could sit here and probably talk all night, but was with them for almost 16, 17 years.
Wow.
Really cut my culinary teeth. It's funny because when I think back to all of my formative years, I never thought that I'd don a chef coat. If anything, I thought I'd have a lab coat on. I was kind of the nerd in high school. I loved math and science and went to a great Big Ten school in Champaign, Illinois, and studied chemical engineering, of all things. But after performing so well in high school with the academics and then having to work one or two or three jobs sometimes throughout college, I started to fall behind in the academic world and wasn't happy with myself. So I kind of compare myself in no shadowing terms to kind of the mind of maybe Alton Brown. If you're
Okay.
familiar with Alton
I
Brown on the Food
am the food
Network,
channel.
yeah,
I love I
he
love
he
Alton.
uh,
I
he
love him.
explains things on a molecular level, and I really was enamored, I guess, with the idea of food science. And so I switched my academic career into food science, human nutrition, ended up not necessarily going for a culinary school goal, but I wanted more of the science background and learned all sorts of animal sciences. And anyway, kind of fast forwarding back to falling in the passenger seat to a multi-unit group.
If I could interrupt you,
Sure.
Scott, a little bit, explain what a multi-unit group is for those of us
Oh,
that aren't in the culinary space.
yeah. Great question. Usually in the independent world, in the independent restaurant world, the dream is just to open your doors to your first restaurant.
Okay.
Anything that becomes multi-unit is growth beyond that. So this restaurant group was more than just one restaurant. We ended up growing to 25 restaurants in several states, based mostly in the Midwest, but we ended up all the way out in North Carolina and as far west as Utah.
And what
So
kind of food are we talking about for these restaurants?
I would say Midwest to Mediterranean. It was
Okay.
Italian inspired for sure. But again, in Bloomington, Illinois, and a lot of its roots, a lot of meat and potato people. So the menu was very diverse, probably close to 100 menu items, full menu, large scale restaurant. 300 plus seats, private dining. So it took a small army to run these restaurants. But I would say, we definitely danced in what they call the esoteric or the truly Italian food, ossobuco, things like that. Pizza was on the menu for sure. It was probably more what we would consider now that Midwest Chicago tavern style, thin and
Oh,
cracker.
yep.
Um, not real high hydration. We would press it through a dough sheeter and cook it pretty high temp, but pretty quick. And so pizza's always been kind of part of my life, especially in those early years with the restaurant group. But yeah, that brought me until about 2015 and watched my wife be a slave to the family.
Yeah,
We have two boys, and anyone that's in the industry or lives the chef lifestyle knows that it can be a very selfish lifestyle. Unfortunately, the industry has high demands and requires a lot of time and effort. So about 2015, started to take a look at life, realizing that my kids weren't going to be little for much longer, and I had to hang up the apron for a while. We walked away from the group and on good terms. There was a lot of dynamics that were changing after almost 20 years. The restaurant group was kind of moving in a different direction. Still, great roots and forward vision thinking, but the ideals of culinary trends and I guess freedom for the creative expression at the unit level or at the restaurant level.
sure.
The chef partners were starting to become more like what you might call kitchen managers.
Yeah.
So I had the experience of opening up almost all 25 restaurants over the years. I excelled in the path of being able to be before the family, young and able to be relocated. I was constantly on the move and basically climbed to a quasi corporate chef level position. There was a corporate chef who manned the helm, but I did a lot of the things in the background from systems and support to recipe development, menu rollout, as well as all of the corporate training at the new openings. So sometimes I'd be on the road for 8, 12 weeks at a time and
Oh boy.
um, moved a lot, and it was great. I got to see a lot of the country, a lot of cool experiences, got to teach a lot of very cool people. Funny story, fast forward to just a few weeks ago, and in my current life, I had a young one that was about the age of my youngest son now that worked for me all the way back then. He's an executive chef now himself, and he was in between gigs, and he actually came and helped us in our current little mobile catering business, and it was great. We hadn't cooked together in almost 12 years. Um,
Wow.
but
Wow.
yeah, after hundreds of, touching people's lives in different ways, whether it was, someone helping them in their long-term career goals, or as we know, the restaurant industry sometimes is just a stepping stone. So,
Sure. I,
but
I don't think a lot of people understand the commitment or time commitment that it takes to do that level of culinary expertise and being a master chef. So somewhere along the line, you made a choice. And what was that choice?
well, as I started to see the probably years ahead of me, less than the ones behind me, I started to make some choices that were, whether you call it spiritual, whether you call it more fulfilling. Sadly, in 2019, I saw my mom pass, and she barely even enjoyed any time in retirement. There was no setting sun for her. She had less than just a couple years in retirement, and sadly, quickly got sick and passed. And so, I guess going back to the family growing quickly, realizing that I may not have many years left with the boys in their formative years, and trying to commit a little more to the family and my wife, I hung up the apron, like I said, in 2015 with the restaurant group. Tried a couple different things. We're a bilingual home. My beautiful wife, she's from northern Mexico, and so over the years we're able to develop some language skills, and that's helped me, from a perspective of consultative services. I was able to go out for a few years and help a couple of the distribution groups. That was kind of the next step or the chapter after. Um,
So what I'm
and
gonna I would say this was your consulting period where you were
yeah,
consulting with other people. So
yeah, absolutely,
not as much the demands, the personal time demands. So you could
exactly.
consult, maybe make your own schedule a little bit, take jobs that you wanted, refuse things that you didn't want, fire certain customers,
Yeah,
hire jobs that you liked. Is
yeah.
that correct? Am I right
Yeah.
on?
Absolutely, absolutely, and the direction that I was trying to help others was, especially those independent restaurant people that may not have, um, that 30,000 foot view of a large macro environment like I had just come from, helping them with menu design, food cost, prime cost, trying to help them drive profitable businesses, which I think, sadly, a lot of really good people that start great businesses, sadly just don't maybe have the business acumen that,
Sure.
that is really required because it's such a slim margin, slim profit margins, and so I went out and tried to help other people. Fast forward to the capital, and we use air quotes, the big P word, right? The pandemic. I
Yeah.
was actually dovetailing with a group out of Chicago, and they were bought up by a large distribution group. I think we're all familiar with Cisco and US Foods, and
Sure.
so it just wasn't in the cards for me to continue that path. And so in 2019, I've talked about, a little bit of my mom and some sad times there. We were really, really close. And the first time I'd ever lost a job, I had never lost a job. I'm the kid that's knocking on doors to mow your lawn or pick up dog stuff in the backyard, right? I'd
Yep.
never had that experience, but it was in 2019 when all of this culmination of emotions and things in the world that we were experiencing really brought me to where we are today. Um, Kind of a small side story. I have a big brother chef. His name is David. In fact, he's been a part of the Fire Within family and story even longer than I have. He's out in Salt Lake City. We crossed paths probably 2006, 2007. He came out to Minnesota and my old restaurant, and before I moved to Colorado, and he trained as a sous chef for that restaurant group that I mentioned earlier, and we just remained friends. He ended up leaving the restaurant group sooner than I did, and it wasn't Ajith. It was the previous owner before Ajith, but he bought a little oven. And so he's about 10 years further down the road in his small little business. But Chef David and I have never um, stopped keeping in touch. And
Right.
2019, 20, we kind of rekindled some things. And I took my youngest son, Dominic, who's become my little doughboy in this whole story. He was in Vegas with us this year, but back then I just saw one of those memories that you get from OneDrive or Google Photos.
Yep.
Actually, today, it was this week, 5 years ago, that Dominic and I took a trip out to go see my friend David in Salt Lake City and see how he was really running his operation. He does just some farmers markets and some
And
small
to,
caterings,
just to
but
clarify, we're talking about a pizza operation, correct?
yeah,
A
yeah, a
mobile
mobile
pizza
a mobile
operation.
1,000-degree wood burning oven on wheels. And
Yep.
so he had been doing it for a few years, and we decided to go take a road trip, a boys' weekend, and we went out and spent some time with Chef David and his family, and got to see the farmers market and one of his catering events. And that was the validation that I needed. I needed to see, really, is this something that I wanted to pursue? A few months before that, I had been at a food show. Everyone's got a cheese guy or a tomato guy, and I was at a food show and I ran into Scott Nelson, who's with Grande Cheese, and
Hmm.
was talking with him, and he had mentioned Fire Within, and which that spark, no pun intended, that spark went off. And I had heard about it from my friend Chef David and had not met Ajith at this point. This was probably early 2021, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and so we take the boys trip. We have an incredible weekend. We make a fun trip out of it and come back. And I told my wife, I think this is what we need to do. And so I ended up going as a student first through the Fire Within wood-fired university program and sat in the seats. In fact, some really big names in the pizza world were in that class. Melissa Rickman, who is part of the World Pizza Champions and Women in Pizza. She's right in Fort Lupton. She's not even not even 45 minutes from where I am.
Yep.
she and her husband Eric run Holy Stromboli, great operation. She was in my class, and Jai Coulter, who's in Kansas City. She's a big part of the Ghazni collection, and so just again, I was supposed to be there. It was my time. I was in the right place. And then shortly thereafter, I had a great conversation with Ajith and just decided that we were ready to start the project. And we built our little mobile, it's more of a trailer, not quite a food truck, but it's a pull behind trailer. And we
Sure.
brought in an Earthstone oven from Los Angeles. And the rest is history. We had a master mason here in Fort Collins help us lay the brick floor. We built a special stand so that it could be weighted properly on the double axle, and very simple operation. We have a refrigerator and a little bit of plumbing on board, and we hit the streets. So
Okay.
yeah.
And how did it go? How was it initially?
It was a lot of grassroots, some guerrilla marketing and the things that I had learned over the years with the group, but realizing that I didn't have a controller in the office, I didn't have an accounts payable or accounts receivable, I didn't have any of that corporate structure behind me.
You
So
were the guy.
I had to wear all the hats, and boy, there are a lot of hats. But we just took it slow. When I first told my wife, I said, "This is either going to work, or we're going to have the most expensive barbecue grill on the block." And she just kind of looked at me and she said, "This better work."
Yeah.
So yeah, I cut my teeth the hard way. We didn't have a huge startup budget. We didn't. Have any marketing dollars. I just started in the community, reaching out to places that would allow us to get out there and show what we could do. So, and almost 5 years later, we've been blessed. We don't still have a marketing budget. We just really rely on that old school kind of word of mouth. Although recently I did hear on another podcast that I don't want to be the best kept secret. So it was this week I finally swallowed a few things and my pride as well. And I hopped on a call with a Google coach, trying to understand what SEO and AEO
Okay.
and GEO,
Sure.
all that means. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, challenging certainly as an entrepreneur. But along the way, I've gotten to spend a lot more time with the family, the wife, my two boys. My oldest son is no longer a teenager and has flown the coop. He moved up to Steamboat Springs in November, so this is our first season without the dynamic quattro or the four of us together. But there's still the three of us, and we've got some friends that help us out, and it's been a great journey.
Okay. And along the way, because of your professional chef experience, to just flash back, you started as a student at Woodford University, and now you're an instructor and you teach the
Yeah,
whole system, correct?
yeah, absolutely. The moment Ajit and I met and we talked probably more than he's ever talked to a client over the phone. I have a lot of questions. I'm very analytical. I think that he and I clicked on many different levels. Ajit has a wonderful background in computer science and engineering, not just from an educator standpoint, from the fire within the Wood-Fired University. I've always admired him because he has a unique go-to-market strategy where he's actually the manufacturer.
Right.
So when Ajith and I first met and went through the process of construction together, I was really impressed. Nothing works perfectly in this world, and whether there was a mistake or a pitfall or a vendor issue or something that was a snag, he was great at communication. He was very forthright, and we just we came to grow almost beyond the professional into um, the amistad or the amicable world, and we call each other friends now. One of the chef instructors that had been part of the program previously had moved out of market. It was much more of a challenge for the coordination of schedules, and he called me kind of as a backup plan, and it was a very interesting conversation we had on the phone, and I couldn't tell really what direction he wanted to take it, but here we are a couple years later, and absolutely have really enjoyed because again, sharing my experience of I don't know everything. My wife says what I don't know I make up, but I don't believe that. I have taken on the model of learn to learn. And as a student of life, as a student of business, as a student of just the overall experience that we have today, I want to bring what I have as far as best practices. I certainly can take the experiences from or extrapolate from, again, a large group of restaurants and bring it down to a microcosm that I think has served people well. Ajith and I, as we teach the class over the 4 days, we really ebb and flow well together. So if one of us is going off a little too long on a tangent, we have the ability to rein each other
Okay,
back. And really, it's about the students. It's each
fantastic.
each class is different and unique. They're coming for different reasons to gain different knowledge, and yeah, I love what
If you
I love it.
can, give me a quick day by day for Wood-Fired University.
Sure.
What
So on
happens?
Friday, most of the students are arriving. Some are local, but most of the time they're from out of market, so they're flying in or driving long distances. So on Friday evening, I kind of wear the hat of the guest chef, and I do a catering. We've talked over the last couple years, and all of the pizza that they're going to eat over the weekend. I really do kind of a 200 or 300 level class and showcase items that can be done in the oven except pizza, anything but
Yep,
pizza.
yep.
And so they get a chance to kind of do a meet and greet. We do a little introduction and kind of go over the weekend, and then on Saturday morning they arrive about 8 or 8:30 in the morning. We've got coffee and snacks, and we really just deep dive in. Ajit does a great job. He does a pretty good history of pizza, history of the culture of these ovens and fire. And we really spent a lot of time on Saturday morning in the classroom just understanding the dynamics of fire, dough, management, staffing skills. And, it does seem like a long classroom period, but I think everyone that comes out of the class at the end of the weekend really does enjoy because most people that come to this are doers, right? They want to get their hands dirty. They want to get out there on the ovens. They're anxious. But I think the foundation of Saturday morning is absolutely necessary. It's something that they walk away with more understanding than just getting out there and doing it. And then by Saturday afternoon, we feed them lunch and we do more of the cooking on Saturday, but on Saturday afternoon, we spend a lot of time in the culinary lab. We really do a deep dive into dough, um, from hydration to mixing to portioning, storage, fermentation, talking about different grains, and really helping them understand that because I think one of the biggest fears of people coming in is, yeah, I've made dough at home, but it really isn't that good, or they're cooking in a home oven and they just have a lot of frustration. So we spend a lot of time on Saturday afternoon really deep diving into dough. And then
Okay.
on Sunday, the roles reverse. We try to get them out in a timely fashion on Saturday. Those long classroom days can be obtrusive into the learning process. You go home and your brain is mush, right? So we
Sure.
try to get them out around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. They can have a night out in Denver, go try some different food, and we give them some recommendations to go explore. But then on Sunday we hit it, and the roles are reversed. We spend a very little amount of time on Sunday in the classroom. But we do touch and highlight on some things that are necessary to talk about. We talk a little bit about licensing, permitting, how to deal with the fire department, health department, things like that. But then on Sunday, they really get more of the hands-on. We have the 3 or 4 ovens that we bring for the weekend onto the culinary campus and we get them into their stations and they really start to get to practice the technique of stretching by hand, building the pizzas and actually cooking and all of the flow that would go into one of their mobile businesses perhaps in the
Right.
future.
Sure.
So all Sunday is really about them and the ovens. We do have a wonderful couple sponsors, one being Grande Cheese. They come in and Scott comes in a little bit in the afternoon and talks about different things in the cheese making process. We talk a little bit about making fresh mozzarella, ricotta, things that they may not have a lot of background with. And then on Sunday afternoon, in the culinary lab. And again, I refer to the culinary lab because we get to actually operate out of the old Johnson and Wales campus. The
Wow.
Johnson and Wales campus is no longer active in Denver, but
Oh,
all the
okay.
beautiful state-of-the-art equipment is still there. I think it's called the Mosaic Community Campus now, but we take over their campus for the weekend and we have their facility. And so on Sunday afternoon, we actually prep so that on Monday, they actually execute their first catering event.
Okay.
So on Sunday afternoon, they're getting all of the things that would be necessary to put a salad together, an appetizer, all of the ingredients for their pizzas. We've already made the dough and we've already rolled and gotten the dough prepared, but all of the other things that go into actually going out and making a catering experience happen, they experience that on Sunday afternoon, and on Monday they come in and hopefully everyone graduates. So
Right.
we haven't had any students fall behind yet.
What a wonderful experience.
Yeah,
And uh, I like the fact that you're hitting all the high points and all the actual hands-on skills that you need. And it's more than just making pizza. It's more than just making dough. There's a lot to this business. I'd like you to explain a little bit about your own pizza operation and give me a little preview of what you do.
sure. So the name of the business is Polinero. We, boy, it took me a long time to come up with a name. And that was probably one of the biggest hurdles for me to overcome and me and my mind of just overthinking things. But I share this with everyone who asks. Polinero is very simple. Pala is because we're a bilingual home. Again, we have a highly Hispanic community here in Colorado, but I have a lot of, in my heart of hearts, a lot of ties to the Italian and Mediterranean culture. So trying to put all of these things together. Pala is a very iconic symbol. It literally means shovel in Italian, but it's the
Okay.
peel, the pizza peel.
Right.
And nero is black in Italian, and it's my wife's favorite color. So
Okay.
I had to give her um, some love into the inspiration. And so Palanero, we've just got a black pizza peel and a logo, and we decided that we were just going to start very simple. We weren't going to swing for the fences. We did, the old under promise and over deliver.
Sure.
I had the background. I relied on some of my networking from the restaurant world, and again, just going out and knocking on doors and being hospitable. That's what this
Yeah.
is all about. The hospitality industry is sometimes lacking, and just going out and doing the right thing. A kid drops a cheese pizza. Hey, we're gonna remake it for you.
Sure.
And so little by
Sure.
little, we planted the roots here in Johnstown, which is about an hour north of Denver. We're close to Fort Collins, Loveland, Windsor, some big and growing communities. Johnstown is the home of one of the biggest Buc-ee's gas stations in the world, if you've been familiar with that. So it's a growing community. It's an easy way to get our name out there. We looked in the first year for, I would say, small to mid-tier events, one-day events, whether it was a town's annual celebration or some smaller events. But now we've really grown. The local guerrilla marketing of just getting out there and selling a few pizzas on the side of the street has helped us get into large weddings. We are part of the annual concert series in one of our local towns here. So every Thursday night for 12 weeks, it's a beautiful family friendly free open air concert. They've got a beautiful boardwalk park. It's right on the lake, and they invite a few select small food businesses, and we're one of their
Yeah,
premier
including
vendors there.
Polinero. Your Polinero has been invited to
Yeah,
take
yeah,
part in this celebration. Wow.
yeah. So we like all activities, small and big. We've done bike rallies, we've done concerts, weddings, graduations, and now we're really looking into how do we expand. As my youngest son is so crazy to think he's embarking on, he'll be a senior in high school this year. So it'll be our a little one is finishing the checkered flag of his at least our scholastic responsibility, right? Whether he
Sure.
chooses to go on to school or not. But yeah, the dynamic of the business is starting to change. We're looking at future growth plans. This year is certainly on the trajectory of being at least 50% same store sales or increase over last year. And we've been on that for the last couple of years, which has been great. We're trying to grow slow, and now it's really starting to gain momentum. So we're looking at maybe within the next 18 months what a four wall space would look like.
Hmm.
I'm in no hurry to necessarily get back to retail facing at this point, but I also have my thoughts about I don't want to become a ghost kitchen and have to rely on third party delivery vendors at this point. So
Sure.
we'll see what comes next, but um, we're having fun doing it. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
important part.
what an incredible journey you have been through. How about what advice would you give someone that's just thinking about it? You got to think about it and then you got to take the step. But what advice would you give from with all your experience?
Sure. I think the number one thing that I've really walked away from this pizza journey is one word, ask. In any other culinary field that I've ever been in every other restaurant segment that I've been in, it's a little different. But in the pizza community, if you just ask, you're gonna get the response. You're gonna get people that are open-minded. Um, so my biggest recommendation is just ask the question. Whether it's sending someone a DM on Instagram or finding a person that you want to emulate or imitate, if that's your goal, ask the question. How did you get there? What did you do? Where did you start? I don't have a playbook. I certainly have thought about writing a book. We don't have anything in print yet, but I think people want to help people intrinsically. I think the human experience, we don't want to see each other struggle. I want to see the good in people and think that there is still love out there. And so I think if we just ask the question, um, it'll be answered. So that's a big takeaway for me and certainly has been true. The times that I haven't asked, the times that I've just gone cold or gone silent and not asked the question, that's where frustration, anxiety, all of the negative things and negative self-talk. So I think the pizza community, the pizza culture is really supportive. It's an open book. Everyone I've talked to, I mean, you've been to Vegas, you've walked that show floor. It's just that was my first time in Vegas. I've been to the NRA show, I've been to food shows, and there's nothing quite like the pizza community.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, and it really has changed over the years, and I think a lot more assistance, a lot more help, a lot more rooting for you to succeed, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
great. Scott, thanks a lot for taking time to talk to me. You have given so much of yourself in this brief conversation, and I really want to appreciate all that you have done. Tell us how people can contact you, where you are on the internet.
Sure. It's pretty simple. Palanero, Palan as in Nancy, Ero. There's an underscore on the Instagram, so Pala underscore Nero on Instagram, Facebook. We're on all of them. TikTok. I'm the old man trying to keep up with the social media. I skipped the MySpace. I skipped the Facebook era, and when we started this, I said, okay, I gotta sink my teeth in. So we're on the three main ones, I guess, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and then the website, Polinero.com. We have a full suite of packages from wedding and corporate events, email as well at Outlook.com, Polinero. Happy to help, Albert. Thank you so much. I'm interested if I could flip the script just real quick on you and pizza therapy. How long have you been doing pizza therapy and tell me a little bit more about
Yeah,
how it fits
I'll
in your
give you
world.
the. I mean, I'll give you the elevator speech because it would, you know,
Sure.
pizza therapy started with my dad. When we were kids, he would come home from work and he'd stop at a bakery and he'd buy a couple of pizzas, and he would he was no chef. He was just he was a second generation Italian kid, but he'd stretch out the dough, throw a little crushed tomatoes from a can, some pepperoni and some cheese, and for some reason, magic happened whenever he made those pizzas. And it got to the point where I started telling my friends, hey, this is the days nobody made homemade pizza as I was growing up. And I'd say, hey, come on over. My dad will make pizza for you. And my dad loved it. And soon it became like an almost a weekly event where my friends would come over, 10 people. We were punky kids. My dad would kind of hold court and he would talk and he'd share his philosophy and he'd listen to all the kids and we'd listen to him. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful period. Um, and flash forward to a number of years later, um, he got sick and he developed Alzheimer's disease. But in the middle, my mom came to visit me in Hawaii, brought me a pizza dough recipe. She said, "Hey, Al, you like to cook? How about pizza?" So I started making pizza, and I was enjoying it. And I was a teacher, so I'd make it for my kids. I made it for friends. And as my dad got sicker, I thought, "Wow, was there a way to honor my dad?" And I started thinking, what was my dad doing all those years ago? And it was a kind of therapy. It was pizza therapy. So that's how pizza therapy started. That was a number of years ago. And so
That's
when
good.
you think about pizza therapy, you're thinking about my dad.
No, that's
So
awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
I can see a correlation in my own life. I didn't coin the phrase and certainly probably didn't put those two words together yourself for the first time, but um when my kids were at that age where they could have been where I was at their age and I was a you said punk, but I was a misfit. I was
Okay.
anything but a delight for my parents growing up. And so, my wife and I just we wanted to keep them around. And I teased Dominic in the beginning and he's like, Dad, what are you doing now? I said, I'm a pizza chef. He's like, pizza chef. And I said, yeah, it's like a normal chef, but I'm way cooler. So, now the kids from school that, want to be bullies or whatever, they kind of look at him and, oh yeah, Dad's the pizza chef. So, um,
Yeah.
that's a really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's
No
awesome. And I'm
problem.
sorry to hear about your
Yeah.
dad, but those are
Yeah.
those are special, memories and formative moments that now you can share with others. That's
I
really cool.
do. I do. Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
Of course. Absolutely.